Welcome back to Space Universe. I am glad you are here because today we are covering one of the most talked about and least officially explained topics in the history of modern space exploration. If this is your first time on this channel, this is the place where we take real documented events and ask the questions that nobody else is asking. So subscribe and hit the bell icon right now because you do not want to miss what is coming. Imagine you are sitting at home on an ordinary evening. You have the NASA International Space Station live feed open on your screen. Millions of people around the world watch this feed every single day. It shows a live view of planet Earth from 408 kilometers above the surface. The camera is showing the curve of the Earth below and the endless black of space above. And then something appears. Something that does not look like a piece of debris. Something that does not move like a satellite. And just as you lean forward to look more closely, the screen goes blue. A NASA logo appears. The words on the screen say technical difficulties. And when the feed comes back a few minutes later, the object is gone. This has not happened once. This has not happened twice. This pattern has been documented dozens of times over many years. And the question that millions of people have been asking ever since is a very simple one. What exactly was NASA not ready for the world to see? To understand this properly, we first need to understand what the ISS live feed actually is and how it works. The International Space Station has been continuously orbiting Earth since the year 2000. It travels at approximately 28,000 kilometers per hour and completes one full orbit every 90 minutes. NASA and its international partners stream live video from cameras mounted on the outside of the station. This feed is publicly available to anyone in the world at any time. It was designed to be one of the most transparent things NASA had ever done. A live window into life in space available to students, teachers, scientists, and ordinary people sitting at home. The cameras used for this public feed were part of an experiment called the High Definition Earth Viewing Experiment, or HDEV, which ran from 2014 until 2019. After that experiment ended, NASA continued providing public views through other external cameras on the station that work in exactly the same way. The feed is transmitted to the ground through a system called the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite Network, or TDRS. This is a network of large communications satellites positioned in geostationary orbit about 35,000 kilometers above Earth. Their job is to act as relay points, passing data from the low-orbiting ISS down to NASA ground stations in White Sands, New Mexico and Guam. When the ISS is within range of one of these relay satellites, the feed works perfectly. But as NASA itself has explained, there are moments when the ISS moves through what engineers call coverage gaps. Zones where no relay satellite can maintain a clean line of sight connection with the station. When that happens, the video automatically cuts to a blue screen or a preset slate. This is a completely automated process. No human presses a button. The system detects the signal loss and switches the public feed to the blue screen on its own. NASA spokesperson Daniel Hewitt explained this clearly back in 2016 when the first major wave of public attention hit the ISS feed cuts. He stated that the station regularly passes out of range of the tracking and data relay satellites, and that whenever the signal is lost, the cameras will show a blue screen indicating no signal or a preset video slate. NASA also noted that bright objects appearing near the station are almost always identifiable as meteors re-entering debris from previous rocket launches, glinting satellites from other space agencies, or simply reflections from the station structure itself or Earth below. Window reflections, lens flare, and even damaged pixels on the camera sensor can all create bright moving objects on camera that look mysterious but have entirely ordinary explanations. So the official story is straightforward. The feed cuts are automated and technical. The objects are ordinary. There is nothing to see here. And for a large portion of the scientific community, that explanation is completely satisfying. But here is where things start to get genuinely interesting. If the cuts are purely technical and random, they should be evenly distributed. They should happen during boring moments and during unusual moments equally. They should not show a pattern. Yet multiple researchers and independent analysts who have spent hundreds of hours going through archived ISS footage have documented something that is hard to explain away. The feed disruptions cluster specifically around moments when something unusual or unidentified is visible in frame. The camera does not cut when the view is just Earth and stars. It tends to cut when something else appears. And the timing is consistent enough that it has caught the attention of not just internet enthusiasts but also journalists at outlets including CBS News and Space.com, who covered the 2016 incidents in detail and acknowledged that while NASA denied any deliberate censorship, the timing of the cuts genuinely fueled public suspicion. There is also one specific incident from 2017 that researchers keep returning to. During a live educational broadcast from inside the ISS, a large light-colored object became visible in the external camera frame. The audio from the broadcast continued without interruption. But the video cut. When it returned, the object was gone. Now here is what makes this particular case interesting. Signal loss does not selectively affect video while leaving audio perfectly intact. A genuine loss of the TDRS relay signal affects the entire transmission simultaneously. Audio and video travel on the same data stream. If the connection drops, both go together. The fact that audio remained intact while only video cut raises a question that NASA has never directly addressed in relation to that specific incident. And then there is the broader context of who has been speaking about these kinds of incidents and what they have been saying. Gordon Cooper was one of the original Mercury 7 astronauts. He flew into space in 1963, becoming the first American to sleep in orbit. In his 2000 memoir and in multiple interviews, Cooper described how a camera crew he supervised at Edwards Air Force Base filmed an unusual craft that landed on the dry lake bed. He stated that the film was collected and sent to Washington and was never seen by him again. Cooper also wrote a letter to the United Nations in 1978 formally urging the international community to establish an agency to investigate and openly study unexplained aerial phenomena. This was not a casual comment made to a tabloid. This was a formal written communication to the United Nations from a decorated American astronaut and military officer. Edgar Mitchell walked on the moon during the Apollo 14 mission in 1971. He holds the record alongside Commander Alan Shepard for the longest moonwalking session in history at 9 hours and 17 minutes. After leaving NASA, Mitchell dedicated a significant portion of his life to advocating for greater transparency from government agencies about unexplained phenomena. He publicly stated on multiple occasions that he believed significant information was being withheld from the public. NASA responded to his statements by saying clearly that the agency does not track UFOs and is not involved in any cover-up. Mitchell himself acknowledged in a 2014 interview that he had no personal first-hand sightings and that some of his statements were speculative. But his consistent advocacy over decades and his credibility as someone who had operated at the highest levels of the American space program meant that his voice carried weight that was difficult to simply dismiss. Now let us move to something that is not speculation at all. In April 2020, the United States Department of Defense took a step that would have been completely unimaginable just a few years earlier. They officially released 3 videos recorded by U.S. Navy pilots. These videos had been circulating in leaked form since 2017, but now they were officially declassified and released to the public. The 3 videos are known by their military designations as Fleur 1, Go Fast and Gimbal. In Fleur 1, a Navy pilot pursues a white oval-shaped object off the coast of San Diego. The object moves at extraordinary speed, changes direction, and then accelerates away. The pilot can be heard on the audio saying that the object is moving against the wind and has no visible means of propulsion. In Go Fast, a similar object is tracked moving at high velocity just above the ocean surface. In Gimbal, an object is seen rotating in a way that no known aircraft can replicate while maintaining steady flight. The Pentagon confirmed on record that these videos were genuine Navy recordings of real events and that the objects in them were genuinely unidentified. They were not identified as weather balloons. They were not identified as drones. They were not identified as foreign military aircraft. They were officially unidentified. In June 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a formal preliminary assessment of what they now call unidentified aerial phenomena. The report examined 144 documented military encounters with UAPs between 2004 and 2021. In a limited number of those cases, the objects reportedly demonstrated what the report described as unusual flight characteristics, including high velocity, the ability to stop and change direction without any visible means of propulsion, and the ability to submerge into water. The report concluded that the government lacked sufficient data to explain what these objects were. Then in 2022, at a hearing before the House Intelligence Committee, the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence Scott Bray testified under oath. He acknowledged that the number of UAP reports had grown to approximately 400 cases. He stated that pilots had historically avoided reporting such sightings due to the stigma attached to doing so. And he told the committee that there were a number of examples which remained completely unresolved. Barack Obama was asked about UFOs in a 2021 interview. His response was measured but notable. He confirmed that there is footage and records of objects in the skies that trained military personnel cannot identify and that nobody knows exactly what they are. A sitting former president of the United States saying on camera that there are things in the sky that the government cannot explain. So let us come back to the ISS live feed. We now live in a world where the Department of Defense has officially confirmed that Navy pilots are regularly encountering objects they cannot identify. Where a formal government intelligence report has acknowledged UAP cases involving flight characteristics that cannot be explained by current technology. Where decorated astronauts have spent decades publicly calling for greater transparency. In that world, the question of whether some of what appears on the ISS camera feed before it cuts might be something genuinely unexplained becomes a much more serious question than it would have seemed 20 years ago. The truth is that we do not know with certainty what causes every single ISS feed cut. The technical explanations NASA provides are real and they account for most of them. The TDRS relay system does create automatic blackouts. Bright objects near the station are usually identifiable as debris or reflections. But most is not all. And in a world where governments are formally acknowledging that there are objects in our skies and near our military assets that they cannot identify, it is no longer reasonable to assume that every unexplained appearance on that camera feed has a simple answer. The universe is vast. The space around our own planet is increasingly busy. And as long as cameras are pointed at the sky, there will be moments that nobody can fully explain. Whether what shows up on that feed is classified military hardware or atmospheric phenomena or something that falls into the category the government calls simply other, the question is real and it deserves to be asked seriously. If this video made you think, then hit the like button right now. It helps this channel reach more people who deserve to ask these same questions. Subscribe to Space Universe because every week we go deeper into the real documented mysteries of space that the mainstream skips over. I will see you in the next one. Until then, keep looking up.